Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
We've been expecting you.
Monday, time for our maven of the supernatural, Denise Pridemore. This is the Paranormal Pride. Join to listen and chat live on WBHM-DB.com or Spreaker app. Search WBHM-DB every Monday at 7 p.m. Central for your supernatural paranormal fix. Welcome to the Paranormal Pride, where the show is about the guest and the listener.
Welcome to the Paranormal Pride. I'm your host, Denise Pridemore, and my guest tonight is Rob Garcia. And some of you that are in the Kansas City area have seen him at the Kansas City Paracon, and you may know that he's co-owner or owner of the Garnett House.
Yep.
Okay. Yep, both. Well, I know that you were co-owner. Are you still co-owner?
Yes.
Okay. And then are you co-owner of the church too?
I am. I'm the operating manager of the Garnett House and the church. Yep. Okay.
So I know some of the people in my chat room know about the Garnett House and the church because we've been down there, and they're good friends of ours, and they want to go with us when we go. You know how that goes, though. I don't like going any place that doesn't have a lot of heat, but at least you have electricity, so we can bring heat. But we show up. We show up in Garnett, not too well. Sometimes, since we don't live too far, and but we're nice. We don't go up to the house and knock on the door or things like that. We assume that you're there or you're not there, or people are in there, but drive by your house and take pictures every now and then. But it's looking really good. You've been doing a lot of work.
It's a work in progress. It's not as far along as I'd like, but it's it's always I'm always trying to push it forward. Trying to get it painted is what I wanted to have happen this year. It was supposed to happen last year, but the weather just kind of precluded him from getting very far. So hopefully
we had a weird summer and fall. So with it snowing at Thanksgiving and 70 at Christmas, how could you have planned for that?
Yeah, it rained like every other day last year, so he just could never get going. So little bits, but I'd like it. I have to have it done. That's the goal. It has to be done this year. So. Well,
the good news is it hasn't fallen down.
No, it shouldn't. It's 161 years old. I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah, I got a story for you. This is may make you laugh. I don't know. We'd heard, that people we knew had purchased the Garnett House, and we happened to be in Garnett because our daughter was buying a car down at Wise Auto, and we were going through, and I said, "Yeah, Ron, people we know purchased a house here," and we're driving down the street, and he goes, "Huh, that house leans a little to the left," and I go, "Huh, yeah, it does." So we noticed this house right off the bat, And when we go into the car dealership, they go, I said, friends of ours bought the Garnett house over here. And he goes, there was just a story in the paper and I just threw it away.
Yeah, the local paper did it's listed on our website, that article about us purchasing the house and, the future of it, that sort of thing. So that's been a while now, though. It's been almost
right.
3 years.
Yep, the daughters paid the car off. So yeah, but I mean, like I said, so on the way back, I got on my phone and because there's no service down there for Sprint. But I got on my phone and happened to find the address, and we come back by and Ron goes, "Are you serious?" I go, "Yeah." Apparently, it was the house we pointed out on the way in. Didn't know it, and so we stopped, and that was the first time we stopped, and we took some pictures, and promoted it a little bit and saying, "Hey, here it is," and but it made me laugh because of the fact that we had pointed that house out on the way in, not knowing that it's your house, And are you guys ever going to put a sign up in the yard?
I mean, slowly. The problem I have is that I have so many needs. I have to kind of target the ones that I can take care of first, and then move from there. So I have some things I have targeted for 2020 to get accomplished, and it's really going to be a slow progress labor to get different things done. So, this year's going to be painting and hopefully a couple of other projects. I want to paint on the inside as well. So there's that, and there's a lot to be done with that location. So, then I'm working on making it a state historic site. So that's also, my goals are more history related versus paranormal related. So, that's kind of what I'm more interested in, truth be told, as I push it forward versus it being, a haunted house. It's
right, because if it's a haunted house, the area may not support it forever. And historically speaking, it is a historical location for that part of Kansas. So, I knew you were always more historical based on the locations that you've been involved with, the John Warnell House and the Alexander Majors House, both of those being sites that were used during the Civil War. And so, like I said, knowing you, that doesn't surprise me in the least that you're trying to get it on the historic register.
I mean, and it's very eligible. It's just that, it's a lot of coalition of work behind the scenes to move that forward. So, I'm just kind of have to take things one thing at a time. So right now in the wintertime, though, I can't get a lot done. It's kind of seasonal, during the November through February months, a lot of stuff just kind of ceases because, there's only heat in part of the building. And so you can't really paint, you can't really get a lot done that time of year. So, I really have to just kind of bide my time in the winter and work on what I can. And then once, this weather that we're having gets by, then we can, I can start to work on other things.
Oh, yeah. And one thing you don't have to worry about is the yard. The grass in that yard is beautiful.
Well, it has to be mowed, so I do have to worry about the yard.
Well, that part, yeah, you do have to worry about that. Hopefully you got some local kid that'll do it for a decent price down there. But the grass always looks so nice down there.
Yeah.
Looks soft.
Since we have the lot next door, it's a lot to mow, so it's a pretty big piece of property.
Yeah, I thought the lot looked rather large. So
yeah.
There used to be a house over on that lot next to you?
Yeah, so originally that lot, the Garnett house is really only a third of its maximum size now. The building was at one time extended out into that lot about 15, 16 feet. It actually had 14, 15 hotel rooms at one time. And so that part of it kind of took an L shape and went into that lot about from the side of the house there. But that part has been either what we think is that it was taken off and split into three pieces. And that part actually still either was torn down or it still exists nearby. But after that happened, there was another house that was built in that lot that's already since come and gone. So the Garnett house actually survived the house next door that came after it. So it's kind of amazing, truth be told, because that house was very beautiful that was sitting next door, but it just fell to pieces, I guess. So they tore it down. I never saw it. I just saw pictures.
Well, from what I understand, the town of Garnett used to have a very gossipy newspaper, so you can probably find all that information in their old archives.
Yeah, it's just a matter of doing the research, and that's the part that's always tough because you have to actually spend your days down there doing it, and that's not always easy for me Monday through Friday. So.
Oh, I did find out that most of our libraries have newspapers.com extended access. Mm-hmm. So you can get it there without paying for it yourself. But yeah, you're right. It takes a long time to research anything, or you pay for the access yourself, and that can get really expensive.
Yeah.
But you've had some at the Garnett house. You guys have had a lot of. Well, because of the gossipy newspaper, who stayed at the hotel, because it would always say things like, so-and-so's in town selling horses, in town for 4 days, staying at such and such place. And, a lot of these old towns are like that. And so who are some of the famous guests that have stayed at the Garnett House Hotel?
Some of the famous folks that stayed there are like Wild Bill Hickok, Buffalo Bill Cody, both stayed there. They stayed there at the same time at one time, but I think Hickok stayed there more than once from what I understand. Let's see. Bell Stars said to have stayed there. Wyatt Earp's said to have stayed there. Bat Masterson, he's listed as staying there. Now, they were listed as staying there in their early days before they were extremely famous, but when they were headed west, because both of them came from Missouri area and went west. Well, at least Wyatt Earp did.
Right.
It's rumored the James brothers frequented the place because it wasn't just a hotel. I mean, it was the stagecoach stop in town. So if you came on the stagecoach to Garnett, that's where they dropped you off, and that's where you would have went in and got a room. And it's said that the James brothers came to Garnett quite frequently because they had a house south of town on a Confederate guerrilla friend's property. They
also had it's funny, the James brothers are all over our history out here in this part of Kansas. Out in Independence, Frank James was in the jail out there in Independence. Frank James used to hang out in Smithville at a place that a bed and breakfast that we stayed in. Up there, and people don't realize how far they got on their horses. We talk about going all these places in our cars, we can do it in no time, but they were doing it on horseback. So I can see that. And then, do you know if James Brown or
now James Brown didn't stay there, but
he did stay in Osawatomie.
John Brown,
that's what I'm thinking about. But he was in Osawatomie. He has a cabin up there.
Now, it's rumored that John Brown did hide slaves there in the very, very first year. The building's listed as the center of the Underground Railroad in the area. D.W. Houston, the builder of the Garnett House, who was also the colonel, he was a lawyer, and he was also the colonel of the local Union Army regiment during the Civil War. They were abolitionists, so they came to the area as from the northeast area of the country. So they came and settled there and were abolitionists and members of the Underground Railroad. So I found in the history documentation that building is listed as the center of the Underground Railroad in the area, and it's mentioned that John Brown did steal slaves from Missouri, and that was one of the drop-off points to be moved off to Canada. So it's it's definitely got a history there for that.
Yeah, well, I only found one Underground Railroad spot north of Kansas. It's up in Nebraska City. That's the only one I ever found was there. And of course, it's also a John Brown cabin as well. But of course, you can't get in it right now because the flood ruined it. And they said it may not ever reopen. So it's a John Brown cavern.
A lot of things about these histories is a lot of this stuff, you find it documented, but it's more insinuated than
directly
documented. So, you kind of have to put two and two together with his associates and, what he was doing, and that being the center of the Underground Railroad. It's said that, that he hid slaves there. So whether that was the attic or the basement, I can't tell you, but it would have been a perfect stop, to ship people off to Canada, which is what is said happened to those folks.
Yeah. Like I said, I know of 2 locations in Atchison that were on the railroad, but that's just because of my history with Atchison. Mm-hmm. But like I said, north of there's a couple in St. Joe, Missouri, but in Kansas, that's pretty much as far as it goes is Atchison. And then, like I said, St. Joe, and then next would have been Nebraska City. And a friend of mine owns a house in Leavenworth that was part of the Underground Railroad.
Yeah, and I think Lawrence would have been a major
It definitely was
for those folks that were headed north or being shipped to Canada or other places. So, especially in the 1850s through the end of the Civil War, that would have been heavy in Kansas. Prior to that, there really wasn't that much settlement in Kansas yet, at least down in Anderson County in that area. So it was still pretty rustic. So
yeah, it's just like it's just like the Mayor de Seine massacre. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if I say that right, but there really wasn't much. I mean, to this day, there really isn't much around there. So, and that was all during that same time, during the border wars. So, right. And, it's strange when a lot of people don't know a lot about, the massacre. If it wasn't for a sign on the highway, would anybody even know that Mine Creek was a battle in the Civil War? Mm-hmm.
It's actually, the biggest cavalry battle west of the Mississippi. And it does kind of tie to the Garnett House in some respect because, a lot of the guys that were from Garnett in the Union Army Regiment actually were there. So it did kind of leave the town a little bit defenseless. So the people were in a panic at that time because they were terrified of Quantrill's raiders, who were kind of shadowing the Confederate Army, that was retreating south, trying to make it to Arkansas after the Battle of Westport. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the people in Garnett were hiding their valuables and were terrified that Quantrill's raiders were going to raid the town and basically steal everything, because there was a gentleman that rode with Quantrill's raiders that lived 6 miles south of Garnett, a guy named John Rutledge, and he was a member of not only Quantrill's raiders but of Bloody Bill Anderson's company. So he rode with not only Quantrill, but he rode with the James brothers in Bloody Bill Anderson's company after they had left Quantrill's company. So, there's that tie to the area because they actually had a fort on his property. There's like a natural type of land, like almost like a cave, like valley, where they had built up a fort and were storing powder and things like that down there. So that was one of the places they would go, get off the grid and hide.
Well, at this, we're going to take a break. So everyone, you're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We'll be back with Rob Garcia and more information on the area. So you guys come on back.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pride. My guest tonight is Rob Garcia, and we have been talking about just one of the locations that he is co-owner of, and that is the 1858 Garnett House Hotel, correct?
Yep, or just Garnett House, that works too.
So, and the links are in the chat room, so if anybody wants to go out there and check those out, please do that, and I'll post them in the other chat room here in a little bit. So the first question I have for you is from Carl. He wants to know what got you involved in the paranormal.
Well, I started out in the paranormal in the very early 2000s and around 2005, 4 or 5 in that area. And that was just kind of very loosely involved. I was really more into history. I have an education in history and computer science, but I don't do history for a living. So I was always kind of looking for something to do in that realm. And there was a local paranormal group that was looking for members, and I joined it. And I was kind of older than all of them, but I joined anyways. And we ended up doing quite a few historical locations with that team, like the 1859 jail. There were some others, and gosh, it's been so long now, my memory's starting to fade on all the places, but there were some history locations and then a few private residences. So that's kind of how I got started. I was really more intrigued with the history because I got to go behind the scenes. And, and as things began to happen and I began to experience more things, I got more and more into the paranormal side of things. And that's how it all started. Till that group broke up, and then I formed Elite Paranormal of Kansas City with a couple of other folks around 2007, I believe, 6 or 7, something like that. Some members from that team, my old team, and some new folks, and then kind of operated for pretty much up till 2016 or 17 heavily. Now it's kind of a once in a while thing, but, I still investigate now and then.
Well, it's because you got a house. You got to get ready for either both history and make sure it's safe for the people who are coming in for the paranormal investigations. So I have another question here from Tom McNicholas, and this is just going to be an opinion for you.
Okay.
Why do people buy haunted places?
Well, I don't know if I bought it so much as was because it was a haunted place. I saw the history of that place and went, wow, because I had been kind of what you don't know is that I had run events for a couple of major Kansas City historic locations for almost a decade. I did a lot of their
I did know that
stuff, and so I had done that a lot, and I wanted to have a place where I could put my own thumbprint. And to do that in Kansas City proper is almost impossible. Mm-hmm. And this place came open kind of out of the blue, and probably if we hadn't purchased it, it probably would have got the wrecking ball, and it would have been lost to history completely. So
I think so, because like I said, when we saw it not long after you bought it, it was very rough. And it looked like a good stiff wind. It was going over. I mean, and we know we get tornadoes a lot, and I'm surprised it didn't before then.
Well, but, it's not actually in danger of falling over at all.
I know it's not.
The locals have actually told me, the old men, that it's leaned since they were children. So it's got, and that's just in the very front part. It's actually kind of locked in place. So I think if you tried to pull it over and straighten it, you might worsen it versus help it. So for now, it's going to kind of stay that way until, we decide if that's correctable.
Well, like I said, I'm not worried about it because if it has made it through all these years, it's most likely fine. And if it was a structural problem, the city would have came and condemned it.
It's already been inspected, so it's
right. Like I said, if it was a problem, they would have condemned it. It's not a problem. So, and it's a lot bigger inside than I thought it was.
Yeah, it's kind of long. But because what you're seeing is like I said, only a third of the original, the maximum size. Now, we have the Kansas plot maps in the 19th century, and those are done every 10 years. And they show the shape of the building and kind of reference what it is. And every 10 years, the shape of that building is totally different. So going from 1860 up to 1890s, that building grows, changes shape every 10 years till finally around the turn of the 20th century, they split it into three pieces and made them private residences and a bunch of other things. So, that place was always seemed to be under construction and always under some sort of change.
It doesn't surprise me. I know I've looked at the fire maps many, many times, and especially when I was doing the tours at the Sally House, and you could see how that house changed over time. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it wasn't huge. They added a porch. It went from a 1.5 story to a 2 story. Things like that. Very little changes. Compared to the rest of the neighborhood that a mansion was built across the street. So you got all these different things that change in the area. But like I know David Glidden, who's been on my show many times, the Garnett House Hotel is his favorite place to investigate. Mm-hmm. So, that's a pretty important, words from him. That's high praise.
It's got a lot of, it's got a lot of activity. If you go in there, it's, I'm not, it's, you just never know. Sometimes it's, for me, it's not as much because I go there, I'm not thinking about it as much because I got to get this done, or I got to do that, or, I've only got so many hours to get this done. So when I go, I kind of tune that out, I'm like, okay, I'm here by myself. I've got to get this done. Don't bother me, so, mm-hmm. But, there's lots of stuff that goes on.
We stopped up there when PRI was in town, because we're real good friends with Dan, and of course Dave was there, and we just went out to meet him for dinner. before they investigated. And while we're standing at the back door, I happened to look and I saw a shadow figure go across, well, you know where I'm looking at from the back door, but I happened to see a shadow figure go across, and I hardly ever see shadow figures. I usually see actual full body apparitions. So I saw that, and Dave goes, "Where did you see it?" And I pointed it out, and he goes, "That's where they say they see them quite often." And it was broad daylight, so there shouldn't have been any reason for, car lights or anything like that to be causing anything. So, we weren't even outside 5 minutes and we saw something.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's on Ron's bucket list to get in there this year. So you're on our list. You're on our short list.
Come on down, and I'll get you in there. I love the place. I love to be there. I wish I had more time to be there, more. But the history wise, it's just so great. There's just so much, and to know you're walking in the footsteps of all those folks that came and went there. For me, that's just magical.
And Ron says, "Go Blues."
Oh yeah.
So when they were in the playoffs last year, he kept going. Rob's probably in heaven right now.
I was in heaven, and I'm still in heaven. Your listeners are probably going, what are they talking about? Well, they don't know that I grew up in eastern Missouri, north of St. Louis. So I'm a lifelong St. Louis Blues fan, and I waited 52 years for my Stanley Cup, so finally came.
Only reason I knew was the first time I met you had on a Blues hat.
Yeah, I bleed blue, that's for sure.
So, and I know we watched the games, and Ron's whole family. Ron's from St. Louis, so they were all excited about the win, and there were parties and all kinds of stuff all over the place out there. So, but Ron has a question for you as well. He asks, what would you say is the most active part of the house?
I would say the original front part. So for those who don't know, the building actually was built as 2 up, 2 down is how it's described in 1858. It's built by D.W. Houston for his wife. They were settling the area. So originally the building was only a small frame house, and the wife did not like it. Mrs. Houston did not like the build, did not like it. She said it swayed in the wind. So he turned it over to a gentleman named Teft, who began to build it. Now, I think he always owned it, but I think he kind of leased it out to these folks and gave them kind of like, get it built to a hotel. So that part that's in the front where you see the lean, that is the original part of the building, and it's actually got grass insulation. So it's really old. That's 161 years right there. And I think that upstairs and that part to me is the most active part. That's where I hear the most, but it's not just there. I mean, it's kind of stuff goes on all over the place.
That's what we've heard. So it's one of those interesting places that, that I haven't heard one negative thing about the place. All positive. I haven't heard that there's any negative spirits there. Have you?
I've had some folks tell me they pick up on something negative. Now, that's me being a longtime investigator. I'm always kind of take that stuff with a little bit of grain of salt, because until I see it or it happens to me, I'm kind of that way about it. Now, I think there are things there that might try to make you think that there's something mean and nasty. There's folks that say they've seen something there that grins at them, kind of like a Cheshire cat. But, I haven't seen that. So until I do, it's just conjecture until you get a picture of it or someone, I see it. I don't have that yet. So, is it negative that you're going to be tacked and run out of there. Well, if that would have been the case, they already got me because I'm there by myself all the time. So.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people have some very active imaginations. So, I want to say to Nick Millay in the chat room, happy birthday. So, since he's out there, I was going to wait until see if he actually showed up today. So, Carl asks, what's the story on the 1904 church?
So the 1904 church is in a little town called La Harpe, Kansas, and we purchased it a couple years after the Garnett house, and we were really going to get it for event space, but that location has had kind of a rough year last year, so we're kind of trying to decide what its future is going to be. Right now, that's kind of on the fence just because it basically needs a new roof. And until that happens, it's kind of tough to operate there. It's got a leaky spot, and so we're kind of trying to decide its future right now. Now, it's got a lot of activity too, and we've had a lot of stuff. We used to do live streams there, and they used to pick up all kinds of stuff in there. And every time we investigated in there, you pick up a lot of stuff. But it's a really cool place. But I'm not sure yet what its future holds at this point.
I know we stopped by there one day when we were. I think I went to work with Ron, and we were coming back, and I said, "Can we just stop by and see it?" I said, "I know that it's not open or anything." I said, "But can we at least stop by so I can get some pictures?" And so I actually have pictures of the beautiful stained glass windows.
Mm-hmm.
The people who own the church when it was being taken care of by the minister or whomever, they did a great job on all those windows. And other than that, I feel bad that some of those windows are broken. I don't know how you're going to get those fixed, but it's amazing how many there were. I mean, some of them look like they're in sections of the church that really wasn't the main area of the church. They look like they were maybe offices or something. So from the outside, because like I said, I didn't break in.
some in there in the kitchen. Some are in like would have been a minister's type office behind the pulpit. They kind of circle the whole building, so they're all over the place. Some of them, they're missing pieces. It's the place was probably neglected since the 80s, I would say, as far as that type of being taken care of. So, I wish it was more intact, but unfortunately, Kansas winters are rough, and the roof took a lot of damage the last year. So, we're trying to decide what's going to happen, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, we went on December 8th is when we went, and they said I'm looking at the pictures now, and it's an amazing building. So why do people say that? How do you know it's haunted?
Well, just from investigating it, we picked up tons of EVPs. We had some folks that came through once. They were doing like a haunted honeymoon tour type thing. And we had a lot of stuff go on when they came and visited. In fact, the girl didn't even want to go inside. It just freaked her out so much. But the place inside was, because they went to Garnett House too, but that church really spooked them. So, there's a lot of shadow figures and stuff that move around in there, and you kind of catch them moving out of the corner of your eye. And I'm one of those people, I don't see stuff. I hear stuff. I never see anything. So, but even I've seen like a smoky cloud kind of move through that tower and around the doorways to that tower. So, from my own personal experience investigating, I saw stuff there, and that's not something that usually happens to me. I'm usually like the last guy that sees anything. So, that's sometimes just investigating, you pick up on what's there. So I know the folks that were investigating there with the other owner, Justin, they were they picked up on like the sound of someone choking, but that was not an EVP. It was in real audio, and they picked it up in the audio where you can hear like someone like gagging and choking, like they're just being, their windpipes being crushed or something. So you can hear it. I've heard the audio recording. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and it can't possibly be a house or somebody near there because there's nothing that close.
Yeah, I mean they're across the street, but I mean you wouldn't. They heard it in the building with them,
right?
So they're like standing there, hearing it like in the room with them. So,
like I said, not close enough to where you could hear it inside the building. So, because that's always a thing I always wonder about with EVPs. Are you sure that it's not something close by? So, and there, I don't think that you would be able to hear it from the outside. So,
well, yeah, they didn't hear. I mean, it was in the room with them, so that if it was EVP, they wouldn't have heard it. It was clear audio. So
yeah.
It was inaudible.
So, yeah, I get those every once in a while myself. So I do have some more questions for you, but since we're getting ready to go on break, I don't want to ask you something that's going to take a long time to answer. But Ron gave the feedback as well that it's a good sized church.
Yeah, it was a Methodist church for a lot of years. Unfortunately, the town has shrunk to almost nothing, so it lost most of its folks to Iola, which is nearby. So, it closed, and now it just kind of sits there. Unfortunately, we had a busted pipe in the basement and a leaky roof, so it's got its challenges. So that's why I say we're trying to decide what's the future. So.
Well, we're going to talk about the packages that you guys offer out there when we come back. But you're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama, and we will be back in just a couple minutes.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
To the Paranormal Pride. I'm your host, Denise Brightmore. My guest tonight is Rob Garcia, and we've been talking about the Garnett House Hotel and the 1904 church in La Harpe, Kansas. And so, since how much what are the rates for the Garnett House?
So the Garnett House rates are about $300 on a weekend night for a team of 5. Is what our going rate is. Now, everything that we get pretty much just goes straight back into the building. We have so many projects going that every investigation that we take, it adds on to the paint job, and there's going to be gutters this year, hopefully as well. So everything we do is going right back in the building, on top of what it takes just to keep the building operating each month. So, it takes quite a bit.
Well, yeah. And what years are you trying to restore the building to? Back to 1858, or to when it was the doctor's home and office, or some other time in history?
Well,
I don't. The historic register.
Well, I don't know if you're going to be able to get it back to its 1858 state, just because it's been added on to so much since then. Definitely going to try and get it as close to possible, especially with any kind of furniture and things like that in there. Inside, it's been modified to be a doctor's office somewhat. So, I think we want to keep a tribute to the doctors that practiced out of there for so many years. I mean, there was a doctor's office from 1950 all the way up to 21st century. So, and that's really what the people in Garnett know it as. They don't know it as the town's first hotel. They probably wouldn't have known that if we hadn't purchased it and were interested in that part of the history. So I think, going forward, we're going to try and definitely give it as much 1850s, 1860s flair as you can, but, without having to tear it apart, because that you might have to remove some walls and stuff to go back totally original. So I don't know if that's possible.
I don't think that that's necessary to be on the historic register. I think because a friend of mine, like I said, that his house is on Esplade in Leavenworth, and his house was one of the houses that was part of the Underground Railroad. Mm-hmm. And he restored it back to 1861, even though it was built before then. He just picked a period of when it would have been so that basically he just has to stick to the color scheme and woodworking, things like that matched that time frame.
And truth be told, a lot of it is if you decide to take grant money to do that, really, do you kind of have to meet those guidelines so much? But
he didn't take. He's got air conditioners in the house.
And you almost have to in the 21st century. You have to almost have air conditioning because it gets to be 100 degrees in Kansas in the summer. So,
yep, I tell people all the time. I said I want to move someplace where it's not 112 in the summertime and minus 12 in the winter.
But I will say all the historic register places that I've helped do investigations for and do events for, they're all air conditioned. So, otherwise you wouldn't be people to tour.
Oh, yeah. And some of the places that you've done tours at, which, like I said, I knew that you were doing tours at the John Warnell house a long time ago. And you were doing them at the Alexander Major's house long time ago. Probably before a lot of people even hit their paranormal, hey, I'm interested in the paranormal. All they wanted to do at that time was maybe to do a history tour. And I think those tours were only in like October back then, right?
Yeah, they typically only do them around October. So, and they do tours and investigations. Now, I don't do the tours. I did the investigations part.
Right.
But they would do them, usually 5 or 8 dates around the Halloween time, because that's when that's when everybody's interested in that sort of thing. So,
especially around here.
Yeah, and that was a long time ago. That's back before there were that many locations doing this thing, and before there were really that many paranormal teams around. I think back then there was probably only 3 or 4 in the whole area that I can remember, and then it exploded about 2010, 12, 13, something like that. It got really, really big.
Yeah. Gary asks, is the church safe to be in?
Oh, yeah, it's safe to be in. It's just it doesn't have running water, and that's difficult. So,
well, if it's raining, it does.
Yeah.
Sorry. So that means that you don't have a working toilet in there.
Well, there's a toilet, but right now without their water shut off because of the burst pipe. So,
so as long as you bring water to flush bring water in to flush the toilet, it works fine.
Yeah. So we're
you
going to
just
see
have to do that at the Sally house.
We're going to see what's going to happen with getting it fixed and getting it pushed forward. It's like I said, it's all to be decided. The problem you have is when you're out in these small towns like that, getting folks to come in and do this type of work on these buildings is very difficult. And a lot of them don't want to do that in winter. So you kind of just have to shelve things till you get to the spring. So that's kind of where we're at.
I mean, we're in a town of probably 5,000 people where we live, and including the outskirts and stuff. We still have trouble getting people out here. Lewisburg, it's so far. Like, it's 20 minutes south. That's not that far. But you take the drive down 169 over there through Paola and stuff, and so it's really not that far. Once you've done it enough times, it doesn't seem like it's as far as it really is.
Well, a lot of
it's a little further, but yeah.
Yeah, Garnett's not. It's really only an hour for me, and it's by going to Atchison. So it's really the same distance as Atchison. A lot of people don't realize that. They think it's
Atchison is 90 minutes from where we live.
Yeah, so a lot of people think like, oh, Garnett, it's you're going to Wichita, but it's not that far. It's really only an hour south of Kansas City. Now, La Harpe's a little further on. It's probably another 30 minutes on. So it's, it's a little farther away. So that's a lot more remote than Garnett as far as distance and getting things done.
Yeah. Where we are, I think we're about 35 to 40 minutes to Garnett.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't think so, but with the way we have to go, it is. So, because you still have to get over to Paola before you can go south. So, and honestly, I don't go to Paola, but it's because it's west.
Uh-huh.
I usually go north. I either go north or south. I don't usually go east or west from here.
I just pass by. I stop and get gas in Paola sometimes, but I'm usually on my way there or back, typically at least once a week.
Well, that Hardee's is good. If you ever have to stop and eat, that Hardee's is good. I wouldn't suggest the KFC Taco Bell.
I don't eat that stuff. So.
Oh, we stopped eating there 20 years ago. But that's us. Like I said, the only time I go to Paola is when it's time to register a car, get my driver's license, or something with the kid. So very seldom. But and I'm not saying Paola is bad because the Paola Axe Murder House is over there.
And a lot of times I go through Ottawa. I don't go that way. So it just depends on what time of day it is. So if it's rush hour, I just keep on going 35 south and then go to Ottawa and cut down. So it just depends.
Yeah, we just stayed in Ottawa too, not that long ago. Did you know that Applebee's has $1 margaritas every night?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either until we were there there in Ottawa. Ron's cousin came to town, and their son was in a wrestling match. So we were out there at the Ottawa High School all day for a wrestling match. So got to find out about the $1 margaritas at Applebee's.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Only 300 and some odd calories a piece, but so you got to weigh the price versus the calories. Is it worth it? So, but
I'm always in a race. So,
well, Ottawa's an interesting place. I don't know if you've ever investigated anything in Ottawa.
I haven't. It just never came up in my career as an investigator.
When David Glidden did his premiere of the Into the Light,
mm-hmm.
It was at a theater down there, and I'm there, and Justin, Ron, some other people, David, Josh, we're all in the theater, and and a lot of other people that you know as well. And so I'm not going to say it was just us, because it wasn't. There was a lot of other people that you know as well. And we were sitting there, and I keep seeing the spirit over here. And before we went, I'd been there before. I'd been there about 8 years before. My daughter's friend had a birthday party over there. And so I already knew that it was haunted. So I kept noticing this woman in the building. I was stupid, and I told people that it was haunted. Guess where they're doing investigations now?
In that theater.
Yep, in that theater, because I said something. And if I had just kept my mouth shut, maybe I could have been the one investigating. And I haven't even had a chance to investigate it yet, because I'm not paying $70 to go investigate with, PT, Paranormal Task Force. I'm the one that said it was haunted. Why don't I? See, I could sit here and complain all night about this. It still bothers me. I haven't been invited to go, and I'm the one that told them.
I think I saw it in passing, but I didn't really register who was putting it on. So
yeah,
I'm
glad for them.
They can make it work.
The theater makes some money. It's got an interesting history, and I mean, the town of Ottawa has an interesting history too. But just like Garnett has a unique history all of its own. So does La Harpe. It's just a matter of how much research do we want to do on all these towns. Growing up in Maryland, there's no way I could have done all the history on the towns that I lived in out there. Think of it. Baltimore, there ain't no way. I'm not doing research on it that deep. I'm, generally I can do some, but the rest of it, it's all going to be family history. But out here,
I've done quite a bit on Garnett, especially in the first year of ownership of the Garnett house. I did quite a lot of research down there, and discovering kind of the history of the town, and how the Garnett house was one of the first buildings there, and how it was called the Lighthouse Hotel at first. And, it's all those little tidbits that you really have to dig for all that stuff, because it's not well publicized. And so I had to go through a lot of histories of Anderson County, and different books. And a lot of that stuff's you can't check it out. You got to go to the library and put your head in the books and do the research. So, Garnett was a pretty wild town at one time, and it's hard to believe now when you go there that it was, but it was very much a cow town like Abilene or Dodge City or even Tombstone. So, well,
at one time it would have been on the edge of the frontier. And I did the same sort of research on Atchison when we were doing the tours there. I was obsessed with knowing everything about anything in town. I wanted to know the history of it. And it was important to me to, if people were going to ask me questions, that I actually had the answer. But people who know me know that that's me. I get obsessed with my research. And, I've done some research on your hotel, and everything you've said, I found something along those lines. But again, I don't want to do too much research, because since I haven't been there to investigate, I don't want to know what I don't know yet. I want to know. I want the spirits people to talk to me and tell me some of the history. But we're at our top of the hour break. So everybody, you're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. This is your time to go get that drink, let the dog out, do what you got to do, but come on back here. So see you guys in 5 minutes.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Jack Speer. Governments around the globe are imposing new restrictions on public gatherings and venues to keep the coronavirus outbreak from spreading. Meanwhile, it is having a ripple effect on world markets. On Wall Street, U.S. stocks tumbled today on fears the coronavirus outbreak could grow into a global pandemic. NPR's Scott Horsley has more.
For weeks now, the U.S. stock market had seemed largely immune to coronavirus shocks, but not anymore. Growing clusters of infections outside China, in South Korea, Italy, and Iran, have markets worried the outbreak won't be contained and that economic damage will be worse than had been expected. South Korea is a major exporter to the U.S., supplying not only finished goods but also components used by manufacturers of electronics, computers, and cars. A growing number of cases in Italy also raises fears the virus could spread throughout Europe, with the continent's open borders. Investors now see it increasingly likely that the Federal Reserve may be forced to cut interest rates in response to the widening outbreak. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
The Dow dropped 1,031 points today. That's more than 3.5% decline. The S&P 500 fell 111 points. Billionaire Warren Buffett says while the economy is slowing over fears linked to the coronavirus outbreak, he says he remains confident in U.S. companies in the long term. Buffett appearing on the business news channel CNBC today after he released his annual letter to Berkshire Hathaway shareholders over the weekend. Buffett says the reports he gets from Berkshire's 90-some businesses and stock investments show that while business has softened from 6 months ago, he is still optimistic. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office that prosecuted movie mogul Harvey Weinstein obtained a conviction on 2 charges. Gwen Hogan from member station WNYC has more.
District Attorney Cyrus Vance spoke to a crowd of reporters following the guilty verdict. He started by naming the women who testified.
Dawn Dunning, Miriam Haley.
Vance
Jessica
thanked them
Mann.
for their courage.
You broke silence to hold him accountable. And believe me when I say that because you have done so, a generation of sexual assault survivors and all of us heard your every word.
Weinstein was not convicted on the top 2 charges of predatory sexual assault, but Vance says he was satisfied, calling it a difficult and challenging case. Weinstein faces between 5 and 25 years in prison. His attorneys plan to appeal the conviction. For NPR News, I'm Gwen Hogan in New York.
The U.S. Supreme Court will be hearing a dispute over a Philadelphia Catholic agency that will not place foster care children with same-sex couples. Justices agreeing to review an appeals court ruling that upheld the city's decision to stop placing children with the Archdiocese of Philadelphia's agency because it would not permit same-sex couples to serve as foster parents. The case will be heard this fall. You're listening to NPR. President Trump appears to be reveling in a mostly warm welcome he's received in India, though the presidential visit has not been without controversy. Trump addressed cheering crowds while standing alongside India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi today, with more than 100,000 people packing the world's largest cricket stadium. Many were wearing white caps with the name of the event. However, miles away in the capital, New Delhi, police used tear gas and smoke grenades to disperse a crowd of clashing protesters hours before Trump was due to arrive. NASA's InSight probe on Mars has detected thousands of whirlwinds called dust devils since it landed more than a year ago. NPR's Joe Palca explains the mini-tornadoes are revealing information about the Martian surface.
InSight has an extremely sensitive seismometer, so sensitive it can record the tiny vibrations caused by dust devils as they whirl around the Martian surface near the lander. The nature of these vibrations has allowed scientists to get a better idea of what the crust of the planet is made of. The seismometer has also detected more than 150 Marsquakes, most quite small, but some might just be noticeable for someone who happened to be standing on Mars when they occurred. The InSight results appear in the journals Nature Geoscience and Nature Communications. Joe Palca, NPR News.
Opioid maker Purdue Pharma is out with an ad campaign letting people know they can file claims against the company over the toll its opioids have taken. The effort comes amid bankruptcy proceedings on the part of the company, which were filed in order to settle nearly 3,000 pending lawsuits, most coming from state and local governments. I'm Jack Speer, NPR News in Washington.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour.
discreet how I do them. I do a lot of interviewings for clients if I'm going to come investigate their home. Because really, when you do private investigations for private residences, you're not just there for paranormal, you're there for the people's psychology as well. So you kind of have to weigh that as far as, are these people are experiencing something real? Are they having troubles in their lives? Is that affecting them? Are they on medications? Do they have other kind of problems that might be causing them to have paranormal experiences? So you have to kind of weigh all that stuff, when you do a private residence. So my approach to that is a lot different than, say, historic landmark. But I still will use all the equipment if I decide to investigate their home. A lot of times I ask for a lot from the clients up front, and not everyone's willing to provide all of that information. A lot of folks, when you do private residences, want you to kind of slide down a pole and pull up in your Ghostbusters mobile and run in the door, but it doesn't work that way. So, it's just what's the location, and it's a different approach each place.
Perfect. I do, and the other chat, I have a question for you. It's from Wendy, and I know you've probably met Wendy at the Kansas City Paracon when we were out in the one in Independence. What was that one called? I don't remember the area's actual name, but
was that the one that I met you remote?
It was kind of. Getting there was kind of questionable, but it was that little bitty building.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
To talk, we had to go outside.
Yeah, it was all one big room. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Wendy asks, is there anything old and interesting in Ellsworth, Kansas that you know about?
I'm not familiar with Ellsworth, Kansas.
Well, that's good. I'm glad I answered her question then.
I wish I was.
Well, the Ellsworth, Kansas, in October 2011, a family of 5 were killed in their beds, just like in the Villisca and Peola axe murders.
Okay, yeah, now that's where it rings the bell. I don't know for certain if they have paranormal activity surrounding that event. So it would be interesting to find out for sure.
Well, there's also Fort Harker out there that was an outpost at one time, and there was a lot of Native American and battles between the whites and the Native Americans, and they do ghost tours and investigations out there in October, September-October timeframe. But that's all I know about. So, but I'd like to check it out.
Even though I own these places in Kansas, the primary location of most of my investigations throughout my paranormal career has been in Missouri. I did 2 investigations at Mine Creek Battlefield.
Oh yeah, that's just down the street.
But in the Kansas, and several places in Lawrence. Now Johnson County, it never comes up. There's only been one place I've ever investigated in Johnson County, Kansas. But
what was that?
There was a little antique store that used to sit in Old Town Lenexa, and that sat in a house, and it was used to be the town doctor's house, and it's changed businesses now. It's been several things since, but it's still there. But now, it's always got some kind of legitimate business in it since. But boy, that place was just had so much activity. It was just so crazy, and there's so many EVPs, and they were seeing all kinds of stuff in there.
Was it by the railroad tracks?
Yeah, it's close to the railroad tracks.
The funny thing is my friend owns a business in that area that he told me many times. He goes, "We have spirits in here," but of course he also makes rum and makes rum cakes. So I don't know. It may be the same place.
It might be, but it was the town doctor's place. But it was really had a lot of activity. And I know there was like a photo studio in there, and I was talking to a psychic medium friend of mine who had been there with us, and she was like, "Boy, they're going to get interesting photos in that photo studio," because that was long after the antique store had come and gone. And I always wondered too, like, did it being an antique store kind of amplify the stuff that they had going on? You know, bringing all that stuff from all these people in there and piling it up on top of each other, because that's kind of how it was. You know, could there have been objects in there that, you know, cause some kind of, you know, swirl of paranormal activity? It's possible, I guess. But, you know, no one ever called us again after it wasn't an antique store again. So I never got the chance to find out. Oh, I'd love to go back, though.
Oh, yeah. Mine Creek, like I said, we just went by it the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever check out Trading Post? And for those listening, Trading Post is a town. There was also a Trading Post there, but yeah, because the people that were buried, the people that were killed in the massacre are buried in that graveyard, right off of 69. We went up there, but the museum has strange hours. You have to call them when you get there. You got to call them to get in. And Rick Park also, he did an investigation out there at Trading Post. So, but like I said, it's just down the road from us, you know, so maybe 15, 20 minutes. So
now we did the only night investigation that I know of at Mine Creek Battlefield, and that was, you know, what we did for that I know someone was asking, like, how do you conduct your investigations? So for that one, how we did it was we set up for the Kansas State Historic Society, we did that one, but we set up near the museum part, and then we set up loudspeakers and we broadcast like sounds of cavalry and things like that, and cavalry bugles, things of that nature that would have been part of that battle, and kind of tried to kind of seed the area with those sounds. And then once we did that, then we went out into the actual battlefield and investigated mostly with mobile, mostly carried everything on your back. But it was like investigating a jungle, unfortunately, because it's pretty wooded and pretty grown over. So, you know, a lot of the audio, unfortunately, sounded like lions, tigers, and bears versus making good EVPs. But, you know, it was definitely a great experience.
Oh yeah, when we went out there, they had they cut, you know, through the grass. They cut a walk path, and every time. Okay, just so you know, anytime we go to a Civil War battlefield, it rains.
Yeah.
So while we were out there, you know, we get out there and it starts to rain, so we have to come back, or we step in big puddles of mud. You know, so either way, but. Yeah, the lady at the museum, she told us about the paranormal investigations that had happened out there.
We went twice, once during the day and then a second time we got permission to do it in the nighttime, and it was quite an experience. It was an interesting place. You know, it's one of those ones. It's like hiking, though, paranormal hiking, because that's what you're doing through the whole night.
Oh yeah,
trudging through water.
Yeah, and the thing is sometimes it's really noisy out there because of the cicadas or locusts, depending upon where you're from. But they get really loud out there. But the anniversary of that battle, I believe, is sometime in October, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right before Halloween. It's right after the Battle of Westport.
It makes me think like October 28th or something like that.
It's right about that time, yeah. I should know that, but my brain is failing on that tidbit.
Oh yeah, believe me, I like I said, I drive October 25th, 1864.
Yeah,
I'm fast with my fingers, but I should know it. I live just down the road. Have you ever checked out the Battle of Indian Mound?
I haven't.
It's on a gravel. It's off a gravel. It's off a main road going towards Butler, and we went down, it's like a mile and a half off on a gravel road. And that one has a really interesting history. So you should check that out. I mean, just the history part, because it was one of it goes along with Fort Scott and all the stuff out there with
I've heard of it.
The first African American regiment out of Kansas. And so there's a lot of stuff out there. It's just really interesting. We've been out there 2 or 3 times, I think. And just because it's a good place to stop and take a walk.
Yeah.
So
a lot of the places I do for Civil War are kind of around Kansas City, and a lot of them aren't well known. They're kind of, some of them, the city's built up over them. And then some out in eastern Missouri that I do, and I go to quite a bit, like Centralia, Missouri is one that I go to frequently, which is a Bloody Bill Anderson engagement and massacre that happened there. And a lot of people don't realize it's just north of Columbia, Missouri.
Oh, yeah. You know what? We're going to have to take a break. We're just going to keep talking, but we're at the break. You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. There was a glitch.
Several U.S. presidents are on record talking about the UFO mystery.
Yeah, Presidents Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan both had UFO sightings of their own, but the current presidential campaign might be the first in which UFO disclosure has been championed by a major party candidate.
DIA, CIA, it moves around, is operating a program to train psychic spies to spy and use their powers against Russia. John Ronson writes about this in The Men Who Stare at Goats.
The first known sighting of a ghost took place right after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in the late 1860s during the administration of Ulysses Grant.
Project Paperclip, Clinton releases it all in 1998.
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I say, do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial.
It's a place where UFO hunters and scientists gather to examine paranormal activity in the region.
Some of the documents, this is bringing Nazi scientists into the United States to work here. So we fought against the Nazis, and it's not, this again is not a revelation. As early as 1947, 1946, we knew some of this, right?
On the paranormal, will we see U.S. President Barack Obama's foreign policy go intergalactic in a quest for gold stolen by aliens? We'll tell you at least how the White House responded to claims the chief executive has been teleporting to Mars. But let's get to today's Capitol account.
UFOs, hauntings, psychic abilities, conspiracy, ESP, cryptozoology. There are many things that remain unexplained in the inexplicable world around us, and we're talking about them here, looking for answers on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama. The truth is out there.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pride. I'm your host, Denise Pridemore, and my guest tonight is Rob Garcia. He is with, let's see, it's Elite Paranormal of Kansas City, right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. I mean, you've been on my show before, but it's been probably 4 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So, Yeah, and but I do have another question from Carl. I know you don't see it in the chat room, but he sent it to me privately.
Okay.
So in case you're looking for it, he wants to know about the little maintenance building down by the Sugar Creek Paracon in the park with the police officers.
Oh, boy, was I involved in something there?
I don't know if you were.
Little maintenance building. I don't know if I know anything about that.
Only thing I know about that place is that the parking lot was bigger than the building. So could have parked everybody, just couldn't fit them all in the building. But it was a good little Paracon.
Yeah,
you know, we got to meet everybody, and everybody got to visit. So, well, you answered that question.
I'm sorry,
and don't remember. Let's see. Have you checked out the Shawnee Indian Mission or anything related to the Quindaro area and on the Kansas side?
Well, I've been to the mission before, but not as an investigator, just as a history guy. So I've never investigated the mission. I know they've had events there, but I haven't participated in those. As far as Quindaro, I have not been down there to investigate.
I won't go down there in the night.
Yeah.
I used to live up in KCK, you know, where the old Sprint World Headquarters was. If you've been to the Indian Mission, it's just down the street. We used to live at 43rd and Mission and 42nd and Rainbow. So needless to say, we know the area. We know it very well. But the Indian Mission, I remember seeing spirits there a long time ago. We lived out there. Well, we moved out here 35 years ago. So it would have been between 35 years ago and when I was working at Sprint. From on the Kansas, you know, when I was living on the Kansas side, I would drive by there. When I lived on the Missouri side, I didn't ever drive by there. So I probably have been seeing spirits at that place for the last from 35 years ago to about 15 years ago. Just randomly when I would drive by or would be in the area, I'd look up and see something that shouldn't have been there because, I mean, I came in the morning before it opened and I would be leaving at night after they were closed. They didn't do anything in the evenings except maybe fundraisers on like Friday nights.
Yeah, it was kind of a quiet location. I mean, they didn't really do, outside of their day tours, they didn't really do a whole lot for a long time.
Yeah.
Now that place is tied to the Warnell House because the founder, his daughter was married to John Warnell. So Eliza Warnell was the mission. His name escapes me, but that was his daughter that married John Warnell. So that mission has been there as long as the John Warnell House was sitting there on the rural border of Kansas and Missouri. So, and in fact, I think she's actually buried right there on Shawnee Mission Parkway in that little tiny cemetery across from across Shawnee Mission Parkway. There's a little cemetery that's all wrought iron gated off.
Yeah,
it's really old, and I believe that's actually where she's buried.
Yeah, there's actually a cemetery attached to the site as well. A little tiny looks like a family one, but like I said, I drove by it all the time, and so when they started doing events there, I wasn't shocked at all. Mostly because of the fact that, like I said, I was driving by it all the time, and in Fairway, it's just an really interesting place. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's the Shawnee Indian Mission was built in opened up in 1839. Mm-hmm. And so it's got a really long history, especially in the state of Kansas. So it was actually one of the first buildings, probably was the first building in Fairway, what's called Fairway now.
Yeah.
So it's on my list of places to check out. It's just a matter of that you have to go with somebody who's been that they allow to do investigations there.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not like you can go out and rent it.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Everything, I kind of I don't mind going with other teams. It's just I just get so busy that I don't end up not going. Maybe because I'm old. I don't know.
Well, we do get set in our ways. I mean, let's be honest. When we investigate, there are certain people I prefer to investigate with. That's all. And sometimes it's not the people, it's not Ron. He'll go off in one direction and he'll investigate with people, and I'll go off in another direction and investigate with people. And sometimes we investigate together. And so, and to that, is your wife at all interested in the paranormal?
0.0%.
Okay. So
yeah. My wife, this is my thing, and she just has no interest in it whatsoever. Never did.
When you guys go on vacation, I know that every few years you guys go back to her home country.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever check out any of the haunted locations over there?
No. When we go there, it's purely family. Our time is spent usually with the family, and I wouldn't even. It's not the same over there. There's not like, oh, this place is haunted or that place is haunted. They just don't. It doesn't even come up. You know what I mean? It wouldn't even know where to go. So it's pretty much when we go, it's all family. We usually end up going to the beach somewhere on the Black Sea or something like that. So just it just never really came up. It's all just hanging out.
I know it's like when we go to Vegas, people go, "Oh, did you do anything paranormal?" Well, yeah, we always do a radio show, so I can write the trip off. I always do one thing paranormal while we're there, but the bulk of the trip is to be with the granddaughter and the daughters, and whatever else the in-laws want to do. My daughter's in-laws, if they invite us over or whatever, we do that. But yeah, and if we do something paranormal, we grab the granddaughter and the daughters and we go, let's go. We took them all to the Pioneer Saloon and, out on the outskirts of Vegas last time. And it was fun watching the granddaughter do a little dance to the country music, and tap her toes.
I've always kept a kind of a separation between the home and the paranormal stuff that I do or did, or when I was really heavily investigating. My kids were much smaller then, though, and so it just, once I come home, I turn it off, and then I go through all my data and do that stuff. But other than that, I really don't. Once I'm here, it's kind of gets shut down a lot.
Yeah,
so.
I've met your kids at the paranormal conference when you spoke, and I can't say anything other than I met them. I don't remember a whole lot about them other than I thought that they were well behaved and very good looking kids. I figured they get that from their mother.
Yeah, probably. Probably.
But like I said, I met them when I met you, and see, in our case, the Pioneer Saloon is it's a bar and restaurant. It's open during the day, so we just went during the day and took them. I would not take my daughter Lacey is I don't know how, but she's 31 and I'm 29. I don't know how that happened, but we've been taking, she's been out to McPike Mansion and the Sally House. I actually gave her, she came to the Sally House. I gave her a tour of it. And my other daughter, Lindsay, she came from Vegas to St. Louis, and we took her to McPike Mansion to meet the owner. Since we were volunteers there, we took them over there. And so my granddaughter has been in the McPike Mansion. But again, we weren't doing anything other than walking around and taking pictures because that's what my daughter wanted to do. She goes, I've never been to any place that's haunted besides our house. I was like, okay, so let's go. We're in St. Louis. Let's go. And but all of our children have been on paranormal investigations, but my youngest is now 21. So
my kids have been to some places, not as investigators at all. Of course they've been to Garnett House and the church and My son's 16, so he helps me quite a bit with stuff. So,
Can you believe he's that old already?
yeah. So he's pretty skilled at some stuff. So he helps out me do some things around down there when I need help and I need another person. So, but it's not paranormal related at all. He's helped me at the Warnell House before when I did some public stuff before in the past. So he kind of assisted me, but interest wise, it's not there for them. They're just not interested in that kind of thing that much. They'll watch the shows, but he's not that interested in investigating.
Yeah, only two of our children are actually interested, and only one of them actually investigates of the 4 girls. And her wife is interested in it, so it works out. Because it is unusual for a married couple to share the same interests. Ron and I don't share all of our interests the same, but the paranormal is one that we do share.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do some things as a family. Like when we go to investigate Malvern Manor,
mm-hmm.
Our daughter and her wife will come. So there you go. We can make a family thing out of it. But of course, she's 26.
Right.
She's been going since she was 16. So not to Malvern, but to different places. So it's just a matter of, what they want to do. Never forced it on the kids.
And my daughter's still really young, so she's all sunshine and rainbows. So.
Oh, what is she, 12 now?
11, yeah.
11.
Mm-hmm.
She's just so cute. I just remember seeing her, I think it was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Almost 5. It will be 5 years in August that I saw her. So it's been a while. And like I said, they are just such good looking kids. So are you planning on speaking at the Kansas City Paracon this year?
I have a table. I don't think I'll be a speaker this year. Unless they ask. They haven't asked. So, if they ask, I'll do it. But so far that hasn't come up. I know I'll have a table there.
What do you feel about the new location at the Abdallah Shrine?
Oh, I think it's going to be good.
It's got a lot of parking, and it's much safer than the location it was last year.
Well, it's also going to be, your speakers. You're going to have more speakers this year. It's growing. It's getting a little bit bigger each year. So.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the price got a little bit bigger too, but you kind of have to do that when you're running bigger places and getting, grant from ghost hunters to come in and Dustin Pari and let's see, I forgot who else. I'll figure it out later on. But I saw a Saturday was like $25. But right now, if you go out there, if anybody's planning on going, right now there's a special code where you can get 15% off if you do it before March 31st.
And also, I'll be at HauntACon Omaha in April, so I'll have a table up there as well again this year.
Oh, and that's in April. Yeah, April, the first weekend in April this year, right?
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because last year it was hard to get up there because of 29 being shut down.
Yeah, I had to backroad it last year.
Up 75.
I can't even remember, but I had to go through rural Iowa and cut over to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a really busy conference. And if you go out and you use the code Garnett, I believe you get a discount as well for that conference. So if you're interested in going to HauntACon Omaha, there is a code associated with the Garnett House.
Yeah, you'll be surprised when you drive up there up I-29. The Thayer exit or Thurman exit is still closed from the flooding. And some of the places you could actually duck hunt from the highway.
I don't doubt it.
I wish I was kidding. It's still bad. And some of the towns our company's probably not going to be putting any more fiber in because it's been flooded out so many times. So from what I understand, it's my region, so I hear stuff about the different towns and from their central offices. So, but we went through up I-29, and when we got to the Thurman exit, my cousin used to live on right off that exit, and we looked, and you couldn't get off that exit if you tried. You'd have to go up, 71 to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, we went up 71. Yeah, that's right, and then I had to drive through rural Iowa. It was just, it was still, man, that was still a crazy busy conference, though. I'm not going to lie. And I barely had a voice by the end of the day. All I did was talk. So
I've heard lots of good things. Yep. I heard lots of good things about it. I know a lot of people from down here had to find their way up there. Coyote Chris had to take the long way, across 36 to get there, or something like that. No, he had to go up to Des Moines and over. So, everybody check that out online, HauntACon Omaha, and Josh Hurd will be there, from what I understand. Since I wasn't going, I didn't look. I didn't know you would be there, so I didn't look at it to see who was going to be there. But I know Josh Hurd will be there, since it's just down the street for him. Mm-hmm. It's maybe 20 minutes, 25. And traffic may be longer, but so. But check that out, people, and see what you think. If you're in the area, it might be a good one to go to. Are you planning on going to the Para concert in Joplin?
Not at this time.
It's Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, there might be another family vacation around that time. So
that's our thing. We're going to Vegas at that time.
Yeah, so it's hard for me to schedule too many of conferences as far as having a table. I'd love to be able to do them all. It's just there's not enough weekends.
Oh yeah, we know. Like I said, we plan our big trips. We plan them out at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. So when he said, "Hey, can you do this?" It's like September 7th is the granddaughter's birthday. We'll be in Vegas. It's just there's no other answer right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I already know we're going to be gone. If it's Memorial Day weekend, it's our wedding anniversary. I pretty much doubt that I want to spend my time with a bunch of people that most of them probably don't like me anyway. So why would I go? I might as well spend the time with Ron. He doesn't like me either, but that's life. So, but yeah, I don't know. How many have you done? A lot of Paracons besides Kansas City and HauntACon in the past?
I've done Haunted America Conference. I did.
That one was at Mineral Springs, wasn't it?
It's in Alton.
Yeah, at Mineral Springs.
It was in a hotel.
Okay, because they did it in Mineral Springs last year. And
it was the year before I did. I didn't go last year.
Okay.
I've done one in Louisville, Mid-South before for the hotel. I've done, I didn't do this one for the hotel. I did Upper Michigan. I did, what's the one in Pennsylvania?
Gettysburg Battlefield Bash?
Oh, no, it was a different one. Phenomenon Con.
Didn't you do the one down in Tombstone?
I did one in Tombstone.
And that was the one that's now gotten better over time because other people took it over. So I'm good friends with Rhonda and Dwight. So I knew you went to that one because I remember seeing pictures. But like I said, that was a long time ago. Everybody, this is our last break. So if you have any questions for Rob, please put them in the chats and I will make sure they get asked and answered. And so you guys are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We'll be back in a few minutes.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope.
That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pride. I'm your host, Denise Pridemore, and my guest tonight has been Rob Garcia, and he has been a wealth of information. So, like I said, if you guys have any questions, please make sure you ask them. And other than that, we'll just keep on going. So, what was the very first location you ever investigated?
Oh, man. Now you're asking to really.
Yep. Now I'm picking your brain.
I think it was a cemetery. That was one of them. That might have been one of them. Another was like some kind of private residence, I believe, was one of the first ones I ever investigated. And then I think 1859 jail was one of the first three I ever investigated.
Yeah, that's been open a long time.
Yeah, that was like 2004 or 5, something like that. So it was a long time ago. And then after that, there's a lot of them. I think those were the first. Those were the first ones that I can remember. So I don't really do cemeteries. I steer clear of investigating cemeteries unless they're like contained in a historic landmark and you can't really avoid it. I'll step out there, but I don't know. I just don't care for it. Had an encounter with the living and then just decided, it's best not to do them. So
sometimes that's the case. I mean, I just like to walk around cemeteries and read all the tombstones and see the iconology and the history in the graveyard, because you can, just looking at the difference between the gravestones from yonder, way back yonder to now. When we were down in Pittsburgh, we went by this one cemetery and it was dark. And I told Ron, I said, I see a whole bunch of mausoleums. I said, I'd like to go in there and check that place out. And, he's seen it. He goes down there all the time for work. So he's seen it, but it's just so different when you're seeing it through somebody else's eyes. So, me saying, hey, I want to check this place out. He's like, oh, okay. And, we checked out this town called Waterville. He drives through it all the time. Mm-hmm. And I happened to find this old hotel there that's been active as a hotel since 1905. Haunted, and it's the end of the Atchison-Topeka Railroad line. It's right where the train stops. And I was like, well, that's odd that I should want to come here, but it's a really interesting place. So I know, for me, I just look around and go, oh, I'd like to check that place out. I don't care if it's haunted. I just want to check it out and see. I'm a big architecture buff as well.
See, and I'm a museum nerd. So you take me to any kind of history museum or any kind of history-related site, and I'll just be I'll be on cloud 9 without any paranormal stuff. I just love that stuff. You know, that's kind of, if I could do that for a living, I would do it in a second.
Oh yeah, I love old forts. You know, like Fort McHenry, and you know, we could sit here and name them. Well, Fort Scott, and then Fort Harker. You know, I'm going to check that out now that I know it exists. But you know, there's all kinds of forts out here that are totally different. And I did find one place that's set up like F Troop on 40 on the way to Vegas, and I said, "Oh, look, it looks just like F Troop." I'd like to check that out, but I know it's not because it was used for F Troop. It's just somebody made a little roadside attraction back in when it was Route 66. And so that's another thing. I like checking out stuff on Route 66. So it makes it really interesting when you're taking the roads and you're looking at all the history on there.
Yeah, my kids are like, "Oh, not again."
Oh, well, you know, they learn a lot, you know, from all that. I mean, I remember going to all those history museums and looking at them, and like I said, again, the architecture of them is beautiful. And some of these museums actually have haunted artifacts in them people don't even realize.
Yeah,
you know,
probably. Yeah.
You know, all they gotta do is go check it out. So, I mean, I don't know how many times I walked through the Atchison County History Museum up there when I was waiting. But I mean, I would walk through there all the time and always notice something different. So, but you know, you figure after 7 years of working up there, eventually you'd notice something. But yeah, we were in there a lot. I haven't, you know, Ron went on all the school field trips with the kids to some of the museums around here, like okay, cat. I have a cat that decided to just suddenly jump in my face. The Pony, the Pony Express Museum.
I
don't know. Do the kids still go on field trips these days?
Well, they do, but you know, it's just a mixed bag of field trips. It's not all museums, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, your kids probably went to Moon Marble and things like that, but there's
aquarium, things like that. You know.
Well, hopefully they went out.
City.
Well, if they went to Science City, they went to someplace haunted.
Yeah, I mean, I investigated Pierpont's years ago inside Union Station, and that was, that was interesting. We only had that part of the rest of the Union Station though, but it was an interesting place. So just to get that little corner of the building, but it'd been nice to have the whole thing.
Oh yeah, there's no way you could investigate that in one night, not the whole building.
No,
I mean, just Science City alone is huge. We went there for work. I know we're adults running around Science City, but yeah, I mean, the bullet holes in the building outside from Frank Jelly Nash and all that stuff out there, and it's interesting because I mean, there's proof of the mob in Kansas City on that building. They never filled in those holes, so it's an amazing place. So hopefully people who come to town get a chance to check it out when it's open, not to mention the trains.
Yes.
Train station is still active there. But you're from Hannibal, Missouri, and I know that there's a lot, there's a lot of stuff that's haunted up there that recently has been coming out that they're now doing a bunch more haunted tours up there.
Yeah. I don't make it up there as much as I used to. My father doesn't live there anymore, so I get up there once in a while. But I see they actually have like a tour company downtown. Now, I did investigate in Hannibal at the Rockcliffe Mansion, which is also the Crookshank Mansion, known as Crookshank Mansion. But that place for me was probably the place I wanted to go the most, though, because see, I grew up. My elementary school is at the bottom of the cliff, right? So I played in the yard of this mansion as a kid. And the interesting part about that mansion was that my brothers, who are 10 years older than me, that place used to be boarded up. So when Mr. Cruikshank, who was a lumber baron, passed away, his family just sealed up the house and moved out, like his wife and his daughters. So it just sat with the furniture still inside for decades.
Wow.
And then, then they opened it up and got it kind of restored some back to being, it's still really nice, but they had to do some restoration and, most of the furniture they could save. But I did get to investigate there, about 2007 or 8. And that was for me, that was a dream come true, just to get to go to that place, because like I said, I played in the yard. Actually, one of the Cruikshank daughters lived next door, and she was an old woman, and she liked to look out the window and scare you from the house next door. Yes, but she lived her whole life next door to her mansion that she grew up in as a young girl. So, it's kind of interesting that way. But Mr. Cruikshank died of an aneurysm in the bed upstairs. So
yeah, it's Hannibal itself has got an interesting history. So
there's
I can
a lot
see,
of history there.
Oh, tons. I mean, just add, hey, the guy who wrote Tom Sawyer. It's from here. Go check that out. There's all kinds of stuff. And I suggest if anybody decides to take the walk up the stairs, that they bring water with them and have somebody meet them with the car at the top. I saw David and John.
Yeah.
Yes, David and John walked up those steps, and coming back from when we investigated Utica in February. Oh, well, the baby's 2 years old, so it would have been 3 years ago this week. 3 years ago this week, they did that. So, and it was cold as heck too. So, because we went out there to meet up with Dan and PRI and investigated out there 3 years ago this week. So, I always remember it because, that's personal. I ain't gonna share that. But the grandson's name is Baby Utica. No.
But I'd like to investigate there more. It just hasn't materialized as of late, as far as going back to Garnett. I think the people that are not Garnett House, but people that own the mansion now it's B&B, and I don't think they want anything to do with paranormal stuff. So it's too bad. It's a great place.
And it's been a B&B for quite a while, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Because I seem to recall finding it on a list of those. But, I mean, it's not the only place that's supposed to be haunted there. You got the caves that are haunted. And and they still haven't, I remember there recently was a TV show. I don't remember which one it was, but talking about the boys that were missing.
Yeah, that's kind of a town tragedy. It happened before I was born, but
right.
The boys going missing in the caves when they were building the highway. And there's lots of theories. I've seen that there's a gentleman who has books out about it. And I don't know, what happened to those boys, whether they got covered up or, what happened when they went in there. But that whole section of town is riddled with caves, and they're all interconnected and go under the Mississippi River. So, anything could have happened. I've been in a couple of the caves out there, not as an investigator, just purely as a tourist, even myself. Yeah. So, we used to picnic out there and have family reunions by Mark Twain Cave growing up. So, it's definitely, that's my childhood stomping ground. So I definitely, I know all about it.
Like I said, it's one of the places that's on my list of towns in Missouri I'd like to check out. And when we were talking about Civil War, have you ever checked out the town of Palmyra, Missouri?
Well, not as an investigator, but of course I know about the Palmyra Massacre and the events surrounding it. Basically, that was just kind of a revenge killing, but, that event happened in what's part of a city park now, I believe, but definitely know the events surrounding it.
Yeah, there's how about the towns off of I-70, Arrow Rock and
I've been to those before,
Bucksnort.
Mm-hmm. Bucksnort.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that the town of Arrow Rock, almost every building in that town is on the historic register. if not every building.
Blackwater's another one.
Yep.
So there's lots of history out there. If you just got to stop, that's the problem. A lot of the highways just go right on by, but you gotta stop and check them out. They're great.
Oh yeah. If people go and do the wine tours, this was much better. And some of them have wine too, like Herman.
Yeah.
The town of Herman has got some interesting stuff too. Not that it was civil.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if there was any Civil War battles down there. Just
I think
driving
not.
across I-70 for the last 35 years, and having cell phones available where you can look it up and go, what is this town? What's about it? That's how I found out about Palmyra and was really interested in it. So, it makes you wonder, should I go check it out and see if I can find anything else from spirits about the massacre there.
Lexington is another.
Yeah, we've been invited up there. We were invited up for the paranormal roundup, but we were out of town that week. And or actually we just got back into town and I just couldn't go just after getting back from vacation. But they have a good one there. We were invited up for a camp out up there to investigate the Lexington campground, or Lexington battlefield. But again, should we go? Because it rains every time we go to a battlefield. So
we investigated Anderson House there on the battlefield, and that was pretty. I got a lot of audio type stuff. A lot of audio type stuff there. So it's a very interesting place. Very interesting.
Well, I am going to thank you so much for being my guest this week. It's been really good, talking to you again. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Probably the last time we went to the Kansas City Paracon, which would have been 3 years ago. So, but yeah, it's been great talking to you, and I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did.
And we can do this again sometime. And, just share with, if I see something out there about the Garnett house, I'll share it, make sure it gets out there, because you guys deserve to have the people coming out there and checking it out, because it is one of those great places in Kansas. And there are places to eat out there. There's a Dairy Queen and the restaurant
there.
Yeah, there's the Mexican restaurant, but the little place with the island name has really good food. I don't remember what it was, but we went over there and we had burgers and stuff with David and PRI.
Trade Winds,
yeah, really good food. And you can walk there. It's only 2 blocks away. So check that out. And
I see questions out there, and I just want to address them real fast. Garnett House, if you want to come there, there's no beds. It's not like a hotel with beds. But yes, you can stay there overnight. Just go to 1858hotel.com on private bookings, so you can find out how.
Oh, yeah. Before we go, how can people find you? You just told them that website. How can they find you?
So you can find me through, like I said, 1858hotel.com, as well as eliteparanormalkc.com. I don't really put many. If you go out to my Elite Paranormal website, you'll see probably almost 12, 13 years of investigations out there, and tons of stuff I captured over the years I have out there for you to listen to or watch or look at. And you can go check out that place. And a lot of the places I talked about tonight are on that website. I don't really post a lot anymore, but my investigations out there anymore, just because it's just so time consuming. And I wish I could, now that I have Garnett House. I'm so busy there, but definitely check that out as well. So, if you want to come to Garnett House, definitely message us and let me know when you want to come, and we'll get it set up.
Thank you so much. And next week, my guest is Michael Huntington. He's a traveler. Is the easiest way to say it. He does a lot of traveling for the paranormal, and I met him at the Van Meter Festival in Van Meter, Iowa, and thought that he would be a great guest to have on. I think everybody will enjoy him. So thank you all. You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We'll see you next Monday at 7 p.m. Central. Thanks.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.